Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Welcome to EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
There are some interesting specials available at Country Cold Store's Mini Mart while stocks last. Take advantage of these specials as they assist you to stretch your limited funds.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Need a personal integrity booster shot? Your prescription is right here. Tune in with Eddie Frederick every week. Information is power.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. If you think training is expensive, try not training and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all.
You're listening to Eddie Frederick, where good values make great radio.
Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. Wonderful. And welcome to our 259th edition of EDDIE-FICATION. Thanks for your understanding regarding my absence last week. I had some personal business to take care of and to attend to, which took my attention for most of the week in terms of preparation for the weekend climax. Trust me, folks, it was great. I was able to host my tribe at a mini event during a special occasion, and yet again was privileged to thank my God for my chosen tribe of real people of like minds. Not for the hell of me can I understand why, when people are having a little do, they are not careful to put together people of like minds, but instead concentrate on a people salad of mismatched individuals. You see, where, of course, one can smell the stench of hypocrisy and dishonesty, as pungently rank as it usually comes in our society. It's so sad, but that's the truth. I thank God for the spirit of discernment that he blesses me with continually. Folks, your sacrifice of not having me last week was well appreciated. That important thing is that I'm back, so ain't gone nowhere for long. Back, ready to go, without missing a beat, I dare say. On purpose and on focus, because it's very, very, very important that we remain focused. Our angel number for this week, folks, is 259. It's a combination of the energies and vibrations of the numbers 2, 5, and 9, of course. The number 2 resonates with balance and harmony, partnerships and relationships, while the number 5 represents change and versatility, freedom and personal expansion. Number 9 resonates with serving your soul mission, spiritually awakening and enlightenment, and endings and conclusions. You see, overall, angel number 259 suggests that it's a time to let go of old patterns and ways of being that no longer serve you. It's a time to embrace new opportunities and welcome change. So those of you who refuse to let go of the old ways of doing things and existing, you will be doomed if you proceed to hold on to them. As soon as you come into the room, remember, folks, we'd like you to share, comment, like, love, just interact as you know how, because you love to interact and we get a good vibe here because this is an alive program. Our topic for discourse today is none other than don't let the odds fool you. We need to employ next level thinking. Do not allow the odds to fool you. We need to employ next level thinking. The story is told of a man who cut his hand and developed a severe infection. He tried for several days to tough it out and hoped that it would go away, but it kept getting worse. He started running a high fever. It got to the point where he couldn't even eat. He finally passed out and was rushed to the emergency room unconscious. The doctors told his family that he had some type of toxic shock, and there was only a 50% chance that he would live. They had to find the right antibiotic to treat that particular man. And every hour that went by without the right treatment, his chance of survival went down 5%. If they didn't find something in the next few hours, the doctors said that if he probably made it at all, somehow he either would remain in a vegetative state or the ultimate would be expected. He wouldn't last long. 12 hours went by and they hadn't found the right antibiotic. 1 day later, still nothing. Folks, it was 264 hours later when they finally found the right treatment. He wasn't supposed to be still alive. He was told he would never be able to walk, talk, or even function properly. But today, he is perfectly healthy. You would never know anything was wrong. God could have healed this man the first day. The doctor could have found the right treatment in the first few hours. That would have been a great miracle, so to speak. But sometimes God will let the odds grow greater to where you don't see a way out. And then suddenly he will step in and make things happen that you could never make happen. Don't let the odds fool you. No, get ready, get ready. Whatever you are going through, it's a setup, folks. This is not the time to give up. This is the time to stir up your faith. All through the day say, Lord, thank you that you're bigger than this sickness, greater than this addiction, more powerful than these opponents. If you stay in faith, you are going to become a testimony like this man did. People are going to look at you and see that God's favor is on you. You will be chosen. How many of you had similar situations and God opened a way for you? How many of you who were in similar situations did not keep the faith and started to try to fix things all by yourselves and end up worse off for it? The numbers are many. You see, the same can be said of the overextended time we spent in bondage, dunceness bondage, under the old nastiness, never knowing when the hour would have been for us to get out. And then after 23 long years that appeared never-ending, not just to us, but even to our captors, the right talent rose up from right among us to lead the main opposition party, and boom, change, deliverance, and ultimate rescue resulted. We got rescued just in time before we became totally absorbed by the den of absolute iniquity. Look at us now. Several of our citizens who could not have seen their way are today able to collect their NIS pension, their public service pension, and when they add them together, their monthly take-home allowances total more than their monthly salaries used to be before they retired. Don't talk about those who are today employed elsewhere. That gives them even an additional income. Wow. This is the state the old nastiness was preventing them from enjoying, which is well deserved. Interestingly, we have people among them who, although the old nastiness had absolutely no intention of paying them their pensions, which were due after retirement, causing them to retire in abject poverty and miserableness. You hear that word? Not misery, not misery alone. Miserableness. They can still be seen following him as if they are under some spell, in truth. These are people whom the odds continue to fool, as they continue to give life to Voltaire's words, "There is none so blind as he who would not see." What is the core message I want to convey on this topic today? Don't let the odds fool you. We need to employ next level thinking. You see, the need for us all to focus on challenging perceived limitations, whether they are societal, personal, or even statistical. We all need to rethink the odds stacked against us, and by God, empower ourselves to take action despite challenges. Each and every one of us was born to be that one in our family, to break that miserable cycle of poverty. We were created to break the barriers of anger within us that many times we cannot control, showing us up as having mental issues indeed. We have to break the barrier of dishonesty with ourselves and reduce on the large unfounded opinions that we have of ourselves, which prevent us from genuinely growing. We have to break the barrier to understand that people meet us before they meet us, and either connect with us or disconnect from us in advance. We need to break the barrier that makes us look like we filled up with air and behave all pumped up with pomposity, but absolutely no substance. We have to break the barrier that causes our ego to be bruised when our interest in something, someone, or somewhere is met with total silence or disdain, so that we do not put ourselves out to show how sour we can become, making us totally unworthy, while proving the someone, the somewhere, or the something correct to have ignored us completely in the first place. We need to break the barrier that prevents us from being able to stay focused and on purpose, doing what we love and loving what we do, for fear that we attempt other areas and end up losing all hope for our very survival. We have to break the barrier that causes us to brag and dispense a vibe of doing well, when in truth and in fact, faking it with the hope of making it has been damaging and dooming us for all our life. Well into our 50s at that. Some of us really need to stop allowing the odds to fool us, especially as we proceed to fool ourselves. And we know we're fooling ourselves. But our aim is to fool others without realizing that we cannot fool ourselves. You see, just recently, I met a young professional whose life made a positive turnaround, and I engaged him in discourse, only to find out the impact yours truly had on this young man's life. He attended a couple of workshops that I conducted while working at different places. And the penny dropped when I used Kirani James as a wonderful example of the power of discipline, and how when one adds focus to discipline, the right momentum develops and away one goes to incremental progress in life. You know, the young man advised me further that he takes in my edification editions regularly and always get reinforcement from them to remain on the current path that he's on. I felt blessed by his testimony. He's onto something. But I had no clue that I was impacting him like this. Yet for all, saw the improvement in his demeanor and spirit, approached him to congratulate him. Little did I know that I had something to do with it. Folks, that is why I continue to give God, the God of our universe, the praise. I am very convinced, that Grenada is a great place and that there is greatness within each Grenadian. Don't let the odds fool you, folks. We need to employ next level thinking. Let's take a little break and we'll come right back with a lot more from where this comes. Let's just take a little come up on Sefer.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
Oh, wonderful, folks. Wonderful, wonderful. Let's get a move on here. We have a lot of ground to cover. So welcome back. And for those of you just joining, I'd like to welcome you. You do the honorable thing, do some sharing, some tagging, and let's get the program on the road because we have a lot of turkeys to fry here today. Folks, I just want us to understand this particular topic today. Don't let the odds fool you. It's a very, very poignant topic for us in these trying and challenging times. We really need as a people to employ next level thinking. The same thinking that got us into the trouble that we have been, where we dwelt for so long, cannot be the same mental frame to take us out. We have to change our thinking. Next level thinking is what we have to employ. We have to think differently, folks. Good? I am a person who talk about this nonsense, traditional rubbish dress for Parliament, which has nothing to do with our culture. It's a little piece of stupidness the ladies has put on their head, or a hat, and all this colonial garbage. We have to stop being colonial branch managers and representatives. This is us. You want to follow the traditions of Westminster style, but use a vagrant. Well, how are you going to do that? You cannot do that. We have to have a parliament that is reflective of us. My girl goes inside there with an expensive, nice sweater, dress, or the colonial branch managers criticizing the poor young lady. Rubbish! Folks, y'all are Grenadians. Stop this stupidness. We are Grenadians. We're not in this wig and little piece of stupidness on head and a set of, look, the men look like a set of slaves that thief the master's clothes. This country is a tropical country. It's a hot place. Stop all this brainwash manifestations, folks. Rend your heart and not your garments. Just look elegantly well. That's all. But we have to stop this crap. And we have a youth parliament and we have the poor little young people dressing like these muumuus. We have to cut it out. These things must stop. Because you dress up in this costume, but you're behaving like a Lawa Jawa. That don't make sense. At least we'll understand why you behave like a Lawa Jawa if you don't have on the people hat and the people colonial dress. But you cannot have on the people colonial dress and you're behaving in the lolly drain. They don't add up. The thing is vexing, among you so false and ill-focused. That's what the problem is. What do I want you, my valued listeners, folks, to take away from this edition today? You see, my purpose generally is to motivate, educate, provide practical tools for overcoming obstacles. Whether you are entrepreneurs, students, creatives, or individuals facing personal struggles, I am sure you will find my content resonating with your general or even specific needs and experiences. Did you know that 90% of people who settle for what they are told without checking to make sure they are not taken for the fool become absorbed by their captors in short order with tremendous difficulty to break loose and break that cycle of ignorance as long as they remain in captivity? But what if I told you that the odds don't have to define their story? Too often, odds are often presented as fixed or insurmountable, whether in business, sports, personal goals, or societal expectations, and can be misleading. Life is replete with many successful people like J.K. Rowling's or even Oprah Winfrey. They faced overwhelming odds but persisted and succeeded. Their experiences show that the odds are not always a true reflection of potential. Look at Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the great United States. This man failed in 8 elections before becoming the president of the United States. But you know what? History records him as the most celebrated US president to date. Why? You see, God put that seed in his heart to continue to persist and persist. But when he was running for the Legislative Council or whatever it was in Kentucky and then the Senate and keep failing, then he ran for Congress and the Senate in Washington and kept failing. He never stopped. Because what was God telling a man like that? I have a bigger job for you, man. Why are you applying for these small jobs? And Abraham Lincoln became the president of the United States. And halfway through his 4-year term was assassinated. But yet for all, he stands out as the most celebrated US president to date. You know why? Because God had an assignment, two assignments for him. The first assignment was to unite all the states and create that great country there is today known as the United States of America. And the second assignment was to begin the process of the liberation of slaves, which took place in 1864. And it is widely believed as a result of that, he was assassinated. 2 years of a 4-year term, the most celebrated US president to date. What does that say, folks? You see, Jennifer Hudson adopted a rare mindset of hanging in there while being totally focused on her dream to become an outstanding singer. And in spite of not placing in the American International Talent Show that year, made it much bigger than any winner of that said talent show. In spite of the odds being against our very own Dr. the Most Honorable Sir Kirani James, he allowed his penchant for discipline to propel him to the top of his game, to become a top athlete on the international stage. His background of abject poverty from gun battle in Guave was never able to keep him tied to his genesis. Because deep down inside, he was born for greatness and was able to manifest his greatness by attaching himself strongly to a commitment to being disciplined. You see, a focus on the power of mindset is more than paramount for each and every one of us. You see, folks, belief, resilience, and a growth mindset can shift one's perspectives on the odds. Psychological studies through research available through Google or even artificial intelligence can cultivate a positive mindset, folks. We have to learn to reframe challenges as opportunities, or just simply learning to practice gratitude. I want to teach you something here today, folks. Stop praying for money and then you close your eye because you expect God to just rain money from the sky for you. No. When you pray for money, pay attention because opportunities come for you to make the money. Stop praying for patience and you just expect patience to come in an envelope for you. No. You will get trials to exercise patience. You see, this thing about praying requires a real consciousness. A consciousness. And that is why religion does not work. The only people religion does work for is the pastor, the pastress, or the pastor and his family. You ain't working for nobody else. Because among you are too religiously inclined, and you're remaining poor and vulnerable. Because you see, the version of religion that you are slaves to is the European version, the one that was put there and introduced to you to keep you how you is. You see, I wanted to make the point. So you see, to keep you how you is right now. You see, I said it that way for emphasis. But when you are spiritual, what are you in alignment with? Your inner higher consciousness. You become a person of discernment. You become a person of wisdom because you're in touch. You're in touch with your inner higher consciousness. The religions don't teach you that. They teach you how to bring your tithes so the pastor and the priest and them could live good. That's what they teach you to do. And they tell you work and you should be heavenly rewarded. Same script as in slavery. But among you still slaves to that rubbish called religion. You see, folks, while external odds may exist, internal belief and determination can often outweigh them. You see, fear of failure is a common reason people let the odds dictate their choices. Failure has been proved to not be the end, but a stepping stone to success. Thomas Edison's countless attempts before inventing the light bulb gives him a legacy that is beyond question today. We all need to be encouraged to embrace failure as a part of the journey and to view setbacks as learning experiences rather than reasons to give up. Here are some specific steps you can take to defy the odds in your own lives, folks. And these could include setting realistic but ambitious goals. We are seeing too many people have become even too lazy to be ambitious and too weak to resist naysayers. Breaking down large challenges into small, manageable steps. In other words, eating that proverbial elephant of life one bite at a time. Surrounding themselves with supportive and like-minded individuals. Hang out with 4 positive and progressive people, and you could only become the 5th. Hang out with losers, and you can always become an additional loser. Practicing self-compassion and patience, folks, during difficult times. Learning the art of breathing deeply and remembering, there but for God's grace we all go. Regularly reflecting on your progress and celebrating small wins. You see, a small win starts with waking up each day. After all, while we are taking our first breath in the morning, someone, somewhere, is taking their last. Aren't you happy it's not you? So then when you finally wake up, go and do something about it. I want to invite a little interaction by asking you folks, what is one area of your life where you feel the odds are or were against you? What's one small step you can take today to challenge that? You're also invited to share your own stories of defying the odds, which I'll be delighted to share in a subsequent edition or generally on social media, whether anonymously, if you so desire, or otherwise. Folks, we all have a story, and we must be willing to share our story because our stories can help motivate and inspire others. Folks, I always tell people where I am coming from, I should not be qualified to do what I'm doing today. But there, but for the grace of God, I go. You see, when you have a mother who keeps telling you on a daily basis, oh God, lift my nose now, make me proud now. And never a day would end without her saying this to you. You must do it. Because your atmosphere in growing up was replete with that request. You must do it. Make me proud now. Lift my nose now. But our parents of today, we don't do that. We don't do that. We're busy fighting up with life. Fighting up. Mawet. Taking picture, trying to stay young like we children. Eyelash 40 foot outside like umbrella. And we dress up, trying to reverse time instead of being appropriate and letting your children follow good examples. But instead we're making mawet with we life. Folks, the odds are just numbers. They don't define your potential, folks. Your story is yours to write. And every challenge you overcome is a testament to your strength. So don't let the odds fool you. Take that first step, folks, and keep moving forward. All of us have a story to tell. And if we are honest, we will tell it with confidence because it is our story and you must stick to your story. You will find that collectively, listen to me, collectively, Grenada will indeed be a great place because there is greatness within every Grenadian. Folks, don't let the odds fool you. We need to employ next level thinking. Let's take a break and we come right back with some more. You see where this is going.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during EDDIE-FICATION are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. And for those of you just joining, I'd like to thank you for joining. Sawandi, I see that you are here. Always happy to see you, Akim, Carla, Shirley-Ann. Oh, it's a whole host of you lovely people. Corporal Knott, welcome. Always a pleasure. And what? And Dinaik, is that Sam Mathlin? The first name is a little bit, tongue twisting. Karima, it's lovely to have you, my dear. Anne-Marie Stewart, Rita, oh man, Nikisha, all well and good. Philip, Madonna, I think it's Madonna Phillip, Joy Styles. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Cassandra Suzette. Oh, you regulars are so awesome. Carrie Ann, welcome, welcome, welcome. Cynthia, I see Starita, is it Starita? Welcome. Well, folks, welcome back. I just want to give you some general stuff that popped up in our current affairs within recent times. And you know, it starts with the US's seemingly draconian move to threaten the withdrawal of visas for nationals and government officials of any Caribbean nation that continue to subscribe to Cuba's medical program. That seems to be meeting with growing resistance from regional leaders. One by one, regional leaders are rejecting this move, as announced by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And rightly so, we should all add. Our small territories are just not able to perfect the art of getting our healthcare up to speed without the vital assistance and well-placed guidance of the Cubans, whether as nurses or doctors. This is purely humanitarian. And with the total suspension of foreign aid by the said US since the new administration came into office in January of this year, we as a Caribbean people have to remain loyal to who have always been there for us when we need them. Already we are hearing from Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, Dominica, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course, Grenada, with a more than expected collective announcement as a mark of policy to be announced by the whole of CARICOM in short order. One thing for sure that all of us must remember is that we are all sovereign states, having been released from the clutches of colonialism, mostly from Great Britain, through independence. Caribbean people need to understand that the American dream has been transformed into a nightmare since 2016, with a suspension between 2020 and 2024. It has been reignited and resumed with much vigor since January of this year. There is nothing to go to the US for again, whether legally or in the main illegally. What many of us need to ask ourselves is why entertain a craving or desire to secure a US visa at great cost and travel to the US and attempt to remain and have to hide? Make that make sense for me. What a stressful life indeed. Ask the people who are in hiding currently what it is like, and you will realize it is no fun anymore. There is a blessing in this new development, folks. We are all called upon to renew our thinking, to remain home and build our various countries. Ramping up the ante under the pretext that CARICOM countries are involved in exploiting Cuban professionals through human trafficking is preposterous, to say the least. When these said Cuban professionals are paid just as any local parallel in their various medical fields. The rubber has hit the road for us, and now is our time to act to save our own humanity by standing up and making the right choice to secure our own interests, even if it means losing our ability to be granted US visas in the process. So be it. You see, consistent with that announcement, we are seeing Cuba, Haiti, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Lucia on a draft list of proposed travel ban countries to the US, in either the column of all travel banned, visas sharply restricted, or 60 days to address concerns. What a lot of us don't seem to know is that a list has always existed. The list has just been a lot more populated with this new president in office. You know, Grenada is not on the list. And again, instead of our people wondering how come, and making Mawet about it in an unbridled manner, as if to show off our daftness to the world via our inferior online rants, as if to wish it on us, we would do well to know our history. Folks, we have two things going for us when it comes to relations with the United States of America. Our St. George's University is an American offshore university with an over 10,000 population coming from the US. Folks, it is the single medical university that supplies the United States with the most graduated doctors per year. So there is an interest in Grenada. Our relations with the US serves our mutual interests and includes the investment the US made on October 25th, 1983, via a military invasion, which many considered a rescue mission, which restored democracy to the island after the fall of the March 13th Revolution of October 19th, 1983. Grenada stands out as the only country in the world with relations with the United States that has an embassy that reports to another embassy as its head office. In this case, the US Embassy based in Barbados, and not the State Department as all other US embassies around the world report. What a unique situation indeed, cementing our special relationship. This constitutes the somewhat solid relations between our countries based on national interests and, of course, history. We have to remember that Ronald Reagan was a Republican president, and he was the president that issued the invasion orders for Grenada to turn back the revolution. But so is President Trump, a Republican. All how he may be considered off the chart with his methods of leadership. Folks, it is not impossible for him to revoke these special interests and special relationships that we have with the US, namely SGU and the invasion and the role they played. It's not really something unreasonable to think about because he's been unhinged. But I just gave you a historical context for you to understand. So stop arguing and making Mawet and showing up yourselves as DUNCE, real dunce, to be wondering how come Grenada name on it and wishing Grenada's name could be on it. Oh God, among you stupid. Last week's presentation of the estimates of revenue and expenditure, the budget, was not without its anticipated excitement, whether of its not so good presentation, its well prepared and thought out, incontrovertible, rich content, the newly sworn in opposition leaders' maiden response to the budget, or the role the nastiness were to play during it all. That old nastiness, of course. What I can say is that based on the vibes, energy, and frequency we were all privy to, there was absolutely no surprise. The new opposition leader tried to present what may have been the result of collaboration, but a script nonetheless pregnant with the fingerprint of Satan's grandson. Not even a feminine charm could have masked the scent of the sulfur of that devil. Hurling insults with a broad smile proved no different from the lolly-drained former leader's rhetoric. When you hear some dunces attempting to declare that delivery as erudite and outstanding, that can match leaders like Mia Mottley, whether when she was in opposition or as prime minister, oh Lord, one must first have capacity and character to be so honored, to be elevated in comparison. Thank God Grenadians have gone past leaders who encourage them to rise to low expectations. Oh, how times have changed. We woke up one day and the revolution was done. In the same way we woke up on June 23rd, went out in our numbers to finish off the old nastiness and its tribe of goons. By 8 p.m. that same day, they were sent packing, never to return. I am totally convinced. And you know, help me, man, and among you love to help me with this. I'm putting it in the comment section. Among you love to help me with this. Hashtag Keith gone and he not coming back. Come on, let me see you. Come on, let's emphasize that. Let's throw that out to the universe. You see, there's an Arabic proverb that says, unlike the stomach, the brain doesn't alert you when it's empty. And what a pity, we must all say. You see, too many empty heads feel emboldened among us to come out and prance all over the place with their dunceness. These gutter snipes will look you in the face and lie. And it is not the lie that bothers me, you know. It is the insult to my intelligence that I find very offensive. But discernment keeps you 10 steps ahead, folks. Discernment keeps you 10 steps ahead. You see, when someone accuses you of something that you didn't do, it's because they need a diversion to hide something that they really are doing behind your back. Too many Grenadians don't see the wrong in their actions because they surround themselves with people who normalize these wrongs. A well-rounded and successful life is created when we work hard at pulling the following 8 dimensions together: physical, emotional, social, intellectual, occupational, financial, environmental, and of course, spiritual. Bringing these together are a framework for living a balanced and fulfilling life. You know what these are called? The 8 dimensions of success. I'll repeat them again for you. As a matter of fact, let me put them in the comment section so you can see them and become, what shall I say, attached to them. So you will understand and you will want to stop thinking when you have money, you reach nowhere, because that's only one dimension. And if that's the only dimension you are focused on, you are communicating to sensible people like me that you will do anything to get it. So you're not necessarily going to be an honest person with money. But when your physical, emotional, social, intellectual, occupational, environmental, and spiritual are being worked on simultaneously with your financial, hey, hello, you become whole, you become balanced. Bob Marley is on record for having said something once. Some people are so poor, all they have is money. And we live among a lot of them here in Grenada. A lot of people are so goddamn poor that all they have is money. You know what that means? They have no conscience. They have no will to share. They're just awful. A lot of people with money are selfish. And you know, most of them leave without a will, leaving family to scramble. And it's always a lot of fighting and bacchanal and tebe. And what does that really mean? It leads us to think that a lot of them could not have gotten the money or amassed the wealth properly. Because if they did so properly, and they had any respect for the 8 dimensions of success, things would have been put in place, because they would know they are not going to live forever. They would know. You understand me? A well-rounded and successful life is created when we work hard at pulling the following 8 dimensions together, when we pull them together, folks. For anyone to be taken seriously, when they criticize anyone or anything, they ought to be without blemish. You cannot be an old, feke, rangatanga looking individual who digs his or her grave daily with his or her teeth, and you want to be the first in line to criticize how someone looks. Rubbish. When people can't attack you in content, but they can't find anything on the content of your stuff, they tend to come after you personally. How you put in your mouth to speak, how your clothes fit in you, whether you are dressed appropriately or not, according to their branch manager of the colonial master's status. Folks, we have people who this current prime minister was known to have ignored completely. And today, they cannot say that they were included and because they helped, he win. And you could find them on social media ridiculing that success story of a prime minister, pivoting after mammoth success in his legal career, coming into politics, 2.5 years, and look at the successes. But all you could hear from them is lolly-drain aspersions pointed in the prime minister's direction, as if people don't know they were rejected. And you know what? They were rejected in silence. And that bothers them because they have this large opinion of themselves. The opinion is so big that they forget who they really are. They forget that they also left a trail wherever they went. And that the trail is there because the archives are alive. And it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. But you know, a lot of unintelligent people seem very brave. And the intelligent ones seem very coward. They're emboldened these days, folks. In our budget presentation, we hear the words deficit, surplus, recurrent expenditure, and capital expenditure. Holy Jesus, how many years we hearing these words? You're going to tell me we have a modern generation today don't know what these words mean? But if we do not know what they mean, we should never want to jump on any bandwagon to discuss any of them without knowing what they mean. Here's a simple explanation of each term. Deficit. This happens when spending is more than income. Every government does that. For example, if a government spends $100 but only earns $80, it has a $20 deficit. Surplus is quite the opposite. It occurs when income is more than spending, which is the correct way to run a business. So if government earns $100 but spends $80, it has a $20 surplus. Recurrent expenditure. These are regular, ongoing expenses. Things like salaries, utilities, maintenance, costs that happen repeatedly to keep things running. That's what recurrent expenditure is. Capital expenditure, on the other hand, money spent on long-term investments like building roads, schools, hospitals, or buying equipment. These are one-time or infrequent costs aimed at creating future benefits, future growth. So deficit is when spending is more than income. Surplus is when income is more than spending. Recurrent expenditure is regular, ongoing costs. Capital expenditure, one-time investments for the future. Folks, if you understand that, you would agree with me that Grenada could really become that great place. Because there is greatness within every Grenadian. Don't let the odds fool you, folks. We need to employ next level thinking. Let's take a break and we come back with our fourth and final segment today. Fourth and final segment today.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
You're tuned to Eddie Frederick, where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, folks. And as we come to the final segment, I bid you, what should I say? Not bid as much as I request of you to pay close attention, because we have what is called a history lesson coming up here. Because the truth is, folks, we do not really know our history. And that is why we are so daft. We run around talking a set of hot air, rubbish, not realizing it's rubbish we're talking. Good. I have had a background in local history. Good. So much so, I wrote a short history of Grenada called From Camahorn to Free Grenada. My background in history relates to my involvement in the National Museum from 1976, 77 actually, late 76, early 77, till all 1984. Good. I've been on so many stages abroad, being trained in curatorial studies, museum management, little introduction to anthropology, archaeology, or just a whole milieu of things. And I am very much in touch with our local history. I'm very interested in our local history, resulting therefore in my pity for a lot of people when I hear them advancing stuff that they don't know about. But look at how important history is coming into play today. We have reports that many teachers in our various secondary schools are going along with students when they express an interest in dropping history as a subject. In other cases, some teachers are actually encouraging them to drop history when they show a tendency towards sciences and prefer not to be crowded by the arts. What does that do for that actual rounded nature of that child or children's education. Our society is reeling from it today with dire consequences, with our youthful population not having an idea of from whence we came to actually get to where we are today. If we are familiar with our history, we would not be in this sorry place today where an old nastiness could have been elected to office time and time again with no vision, duncerizing and pauperizing our people to the point where large swaths of them have been doomed to be poor and vulnerable today, 51 years after national independence. Grenada's 1951 freedom fighter, in the person of Eric Gary, started his journey to represent people when he worked on the oil fields in Aruba. Folks, I'm going to give you some revelations today. Listen to them. There he met and made friends with one Rupert Bishop, father of Maurice Bishop. Believe it or not, they became very close friends and remained such until Rupert's passing on Bloody Monday of January 1974. These are things the late Alimenta Bishop told me when I visited her a few times. Gary's agitation on the oil fields in Aruba angered the Dutch authorities, and they sent him packing. In other words, in short, they deported him. Upon his return to Grenada, he discovered that adult suffrage, the right to vote, the right for everybody over 21 to vote, had not yet been secured. And so he took up an invitation from Tubal Uriah Buzz Butler in neighboring Trinidad to join him in his labor struggles there. Needless to say, Gary's plurality, magnetism, and penchant for dominance contributed to a falling out between himself and Butler, and he returned to Grenada. But when Gary returned to Grenada, adult suffrage that Theophilus Albert Marichaud had been struggling for since 1919 with the British authorities came into fruition. And by this time, Gary's return was well timed, as he became the beneficiary big times of it. Thus was born his political career in elective politics in 1951 at the age of 29. When we take 1951 from 2025, we get a total of 74 years, folks. It is 74 years ago that Gary's advent into elective politics was really an indication that the age of leadership changed from old, frumpy colonial men to a dapper young black, totally local son of the soil. Yet for all, 3/4 of a century later, we have a pretty large swath of our population following a nearly 80-year-old expired, proven evil creature with no intention of relevant thinking and focus for the 21st century. That has to be an extremely poor reflection of those people's mental capacity, indeed. But they can only do that because they have no idea of our history. None whatsoever. And that is where the sadness comes in. That is precisely why we have to be concerned that our history is important, and that history as a subject must not be reduced to the status of an elective, but rather a compulsory subject in school. History as a subject should be buttressed with loads of local and Caribbean flavor, written in the broadest sense, so that we are no longer made to idolize Christopher Columbus, Henry Morgan, or Francis Drake, while we remain totally oblivious to the role our own heroes and heroines played as freedom fighters against the fangs of colonialism and imperialism. Gary and Bishop had quite a bit in common, in that they both started pretty young in local politics. Gary was born in February of 1922, and at the age of 25, 26, he started his agitations, indicating his passion for people leadership. You want to hear something? Maurice Bishop, the only son of his best friend Rupert Bishop, who was born 22 years after Gary in May of 1944. After completing his legal studies and a little agitation in the UK, returned to Grenada at the age of 25, 26 to commence his political career. At the age of 29, Maurice became the leader of the merged movements, Joint Effort for Welfare, Education and Liberation, JEWEL, of Unison Whiteman, Sebastian Thomas, Selwyn Strawn, and Teddy Victor, and his own movement of the Assemblies of People, MAP. Somewhere in the mix was Bernard Cord, who was as militant with his opposition to Gary, a comrade who suffered no shortage of strategy and intellect to back it up. Maurice's charisma and charm was so dominant, as complemented by his gift of the gab, that he was unanimously chosen as leader of the product of this merger, the new Jewel Movement, NJM. This happened on 15th March 1973. And as I said, the record is there to show that Maurice Bishop was 29 years old, the same age Gary was when he succeeded in becoming elected to the legislature in 1951. Going forward, the turbulence that followed could only be likened to the clash of the titans. Two mass leaders, one whose appeal was waning because of the age of the people who were following him, and the other more appealing to the younger population, with the potential to grow exponentially, especially as he, Bishop, looked like the majority of our youthful population, while the other was already shrouded in obviously outdated political methods and techniques. Suffice it to say, when the NJM under Maurice Bishop's leadership wrestled power from Sir Eric Gary on 13th March 1979, Gary had only 23 days prior celebrated his 57th birthday. You see, critical thinking, folks, accounts for the ability to logically deduce that back then, 46 years ago, to be over 55 in political leadership, you were regarded as spent, done, finish, out of date, expired. Yet for all, in these enlightened modern years, we have so many backwardly inclined Grenadians who want to feel a nearly 80-year-old nastiness with no good intention for the nation, as proved over the extended time he was around the precincts of leadership, must be allowed to grope our local corridors of power. We, the conscious Grenadians who know our history, say, hell no. Hashtag Keith gone and he not coming back. You see, the Grenada Revolution, which began on March 13th, 1979, was a significant event in the history of the Caribbean. It marked the overthrow of the government of Sir Eric Gary by the New Jewel Movement, a Marxist-Leninist political party led by Maurice Bishop and Bernard Cord. You see, Sir Eric Gary had been the Prime Minister of Grenada since the country gained independence from Britain in 1974. His rule was characterized by allegations of corruption, authoritarianism, and political repression. Gary's government was accused of using violence and intimidation to suppress opposition, including the notorious Mongoose Gang, an alleged paramilitary group of sorts loyal to Sir Eric. Economic inequality, unemployment, poor living conditions fueled widespread discontent among the Grenadian masses. As already established, the NJM was founded in 1973 by Maurice Bishop, Unison Whiteman, Bernard Cord, and other leftist activists. The New Jewel Movement advocated for social justice, economic equality, and an end to Gary's authoritarian rule. It gained support from workers, farmers, and business community, students especially, and intellectuals. But there were some growing tensions. In the late 1970s, tensions between Gary's government and the NJM escalated. Gary's regime increasingly targeted New Jewel movement members and supporters with harassment, arrests, and even some violence. The NJM began organizing secretly, prepared for a potential armed struggle to overthrow Gary. Give the NJM this. Listen to me carefully, folks, because some of you politicians will do well to be instructed by what I'm about to say. Give the NJM this, the New Jewel movement. They were always strong on holding their confidence, something that cannot be said of many modern political groups, especially the NDC, who have always been known to give an advantage to their opponents because they talk too goddamn much, and they still do. On March 13th, 1979, while Gary was out of the country attending a United Nations meeting, the NJM launched a nearly bloodless coup. Armed NJM supporters took control of key government buildings, the police barracks, and the lone radio station, naming it, of course, Radio Free Grenada. The revolution was swift, met with little resistance. The NJM declared the establishment of the People's Revolutionary Government, with Maurice Bishop as Prime Minister. The revolution was initially welcomed by millions who were disillusioned with Gary's rule. Bishop's charisma and promises of social and economic reform inspired hope for a better future. But look at some of the social and economic reforms, key features of the revolution. The People's Revolutionary Government, the PRG, implemented a series of progressive reforms, including free education, healthcare, and literacy programs. Land reform and agricultural cooperatives were introduced to address economic inequality. The government also focused on infrastructure development, such as building roads, an international airport, and improving public services. The PRG, People's Revolutionary Government, aligned itself with socialist and non-aligned movements, establishing close ties to Cuba, the Soviet Union, and other leftist governments the world over. This shift in foreign policy alarmed the United States, which viewed Grenada as a potential Soviet ally in the Caribbean. But despite its initial popularity, the People's Revolutionary Government faced internal divisions, particularly between Maurice Bishop and Bernard God, who, it is reported, advocated for a more hardline Marxist approach. The government also faced criticism for restricting political freedoms and suppressing dissent. In October 1983, tensions within the NJM escalated into a violent power struggle. Bernard God is reported, together with his faction, to have placed Bishop under house arrest. On October 19th, 1983, Bishop and several of his supporters were freed by a crowd of demonstrators, but were later captured and executed by the reputed Cord's faction. This led, of course, to US invasion. You see, that internal chaos and the perceived threat of a Marxist government in the region prompted the United States to intervene, using, of course, the presence of the St. George's University School of Medicine, as it was called back then, with just over 1,000 students, American students, using that as a pretext to come in to make sure they save them. On October 25th, 1983, US forces, along with troops from several Caribbean nations, invaded Grenada in Operation Urgent Fury. The People's Revolutionary Government, the PRG, was overthrown, and the revolution came to a halt, an end. Okay, legacy of the Grenada Revolution. The Grenada Revolution remains a polarizing chapter in Caribbean history. Folks, supporters view it as a bold attempt to address social and economic injustices, while critics highlight its authoritarian tendencies and ultimate collapse. Maurice Bishop is remembered as a charismatic leader who inspired hope for change, but his tragic death and the revolution's violent end serve as a cautionary tale about the challenges of revolutionary governance. Folks, I will continue to advocate for the advancement of our rich local history to be taught in our nation's schools, from the primary level through to the secondary and even tertiary levels. The method that was used in the Presentation Brothers College back then in the days when I went to that school during the 70s was to get the arts subjects out of the way in Form 4, out of the way. We were encouraged to sit at least 4 subjects at the GCE ordinary level in Form 4. They were English literature, geography, English language, and West Indian history. Get them out of the way in Form 4. Maybe that should come back again, so that people have what is called a compulsion to do history. Folks, we have C.L.R. James said, "He who only knows cricket knows not cricket," because it goes beyond the boundaries. How could you go to school and you drop all these subjects that help you with your general knowledge, and all you want to do is the subjects to become a doctor? And then when you become a doctor, the only conversation you could have is about doctor stuff. So when people tell you something that's of general knowledge, you say, oh, so I didn't even know that now. How many times we hear that from people that we think ought to know other things other than just being a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor? Folks, that in itself is the height of dunceness. We have to have a rounded education. We have to have no prejudice about what we read. We have a general interest, yes. We know where we want to go, but we must also know other things. Because life is not just about being a doctor. Life is not just about being a nurse. Life is life. None of these subjects were electives. They were all compulsory back then, and hence our well-rounded nature today. It doesn't matter whether one ended up being an engineer, an accountant, an actuary, a physician, a scientist. We all were privy to a well-rounded education that serves us in good stead throughout our lives. No need to reinvent the wheel, folks. We just need to reignite our fire. Because, as I take my leave here, Grenada is a great place. There is greatness within every Grenadian. Don't let the odds fool you, folks. We need to employ next level thinking. I am in, I'm out, and I'm gone. Thanks for joining today, folks. Continue to share. See you next week at the same time, same place for more extraordinary programming. Until then, stay safe, stay well, remain vigilant. Stay lifted. But don't you ever forget to remain focused and on purpose. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. No fake name, Edward or Eddie Frederick. Subscribe, like, and share, and be prepared to receive your mental multivitamins as straight up as I deliver them. Peace and blessings, folks. Become very productive this week. Do your best so that we can manifest that Grenada really and truly is a great place, and that there is greatness within each and every one of us, because we love our country and we're doing it for Grenada. So thank you once again. Have a great one. Toodaloo, as some of the people would say.
Want to stay informed, get educated, and feel empowered? Stay tuned where information is power.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This has been Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
There are some interesting specials available at Country Cold Store's Mini Mart while stocks last. Take advantage of these specials as they assist you to stretch your limited funds.
The Country Cool Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Need a personal integrity booster shot? Your prescription is right here. Tune in with Eddie Frederick every week. Information is power.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. If you think training is expensive, try not training and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.